Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today is, what's today's date? Tuesday, April 20th. Thank you. Tuesday, April 20th. Tonight we have a Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing and general meeting. This meeting is being held in Jeremy and I, room 213 in Town Hall. And it's also being held via GoToMeeting as per the governor's order. Tonight, like I said, we have a public hearing with a few applications and then some general meeting items. And at the end, we have a chairman's report. Kara Gately is trying to log in. It should be here shortly, I think. Looks like but we have a quorum, right?
We do have a quorum. It's Mr. O'Vaney, Mr. Rand, Mr. Riley, Mr. Warble, and Ms. Leahy are all present.
Fantastic. All right. So with that said,
There's Kara Gately right there.
There's Kara Gately. She's a little bit frozen. Now she's unfrozen. And now she's smiling. She's perfect. Okay. Here we go. Kara, welcome. First item on the agenda is special permit application number 117G as in George. Site plan, Noroton Presbyterian Church 23 and 25 Noroton Avenue. Proposal to construct a parsonage. Parsonage with associated porch and patio areas in generally same location as the previously raised parsonage at 23 Noroton Avenue. Construct two realigned driveways on 25 Noroton Avenue, one to provide access to the new parsonage and a second to provide access to the existing parsonage at 25 Noroton Avenue, and to perform related site development activities. The 8.96 plus minus subject property is
No, you don't need
Boston Post Road, and at the northwest corner, formed by association with Noroton Avenue, and is shown on Assessor's map number 43 as lots 3, 4, 5 in the R1/3 zone. Okay, this is the two houses that are basically on Noroton Avenue.
One was recently demolished within the past month.
Right.
They're looking to put a new parsonage, place for one of the pastors to live, in essentially the same location. It's a slightly smaller footprint. You may recall about, I think it's 8 years ago, Craig Flaherty and the team at Redness and Mead designed a whole drainage system on the Noroton Presbyterian property, which included pervious paver, as well as a big pond, which is in the northwest corner of the property. So basically what they're doing is putting a new parsonage where there used to be one, adding a new driveway to Noroton Avenue, and really no change in any other use to the church property. No change in membership, no change in anything. So it's just a new place for one of the pastors to live.
Parsonage is probably code word for pastor's business.
Pastor's house, yes.
There you go. Cool.
So Mr. Flaherty's here to talk a little bit about what they've looked at, how they've designed it, and how it all fits in with the existing activities on the property.
Craig Flaherty, welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission of Darien. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. My name is Craig Flaherty. I'm a senior engineer and principal with Redness and Mead, a land use consulting company with offices in Stamford and Wilton. I'm here on behalf of Noroton Presbyterian Church, representing this application. I'm joined on this call, should we need them, by Missy Fiorita and Dan Kolakowski, two of the parishioners. Missy is kind of heading up this project for the church. I'll share my screen now, Fred. Hopefully I'm clear to go. Yep. I always like to start with an aerial from the Darien GIS public access system to give you folks an orientation. Noroton Presbyterian Church has a total of 9 acres, the corner of Noroton Avenue and Post Road, as you know. My hand is hovering over 23 Noroton Avenue, which is primarily the subject of the application tonight. The house to the north is 25 Noroton Avenue, which is getting the individualized driveway. You can see here that currently it is a common drive between the two residences, and the proposal is to separate those drives. So if we were just doing this single family residence tonight, we probably wouldn't be before you. We are not in a CAM zone. We are not flood zone. We are not doing any appreciable amount of cutting or filling, which would require such an application. But It just so happens that this single family residence is on a church property, which is a special permit use in the residential zone, and anything that we do to modify this site plan, be it an improved sport court or a new residence, we have to be before you with a special permit application. This is a survey zooming into this northeast quadrant of the site, showing the new footprint of the new residence. As Jeremy stated, we are reducing impervious coverage when evaluating existing to proposed conditions. And we also have the benefit of a significant stormwater management detention basin on the site that really has been sized to handle all of the impervious coverage on the site, down to the Fresh Meadow standard, below the Fresh Meadow standard, even before that standard existed. By replacing this impervious coverage, we are still working with the benefit of that detention basin. To show you those calculations in clear form, these are just a couple of coverage exhibits. Green is landscaped area, gray is anything that's not landscaped, drives, walks, houses, terraces, patios. And I'll just toggle back and forth between the existing condition and the proposed condition. There's the proposed condition. I'll do that one more time. Whether or not you can see it, there's more green on the second one. We're reducing impervious coverage by about 400 square feet. This also allows you to see very clearly how we're separating the drives. The drive to 23 Noroton is going to use the existing curb cut. A new curb cut will be created for 25 Noroton. I believe we have DPW sign off on the site plan, curb cut, and the drainage plan with standard conditions. Obviously, we would need a street opening permit from them for any work within the right of way. That's really the body of the presentation tonight. We hope that you see it as simply as we do. The church is eager to move forward with this. As you can tell, they've already demolished the prior residence. They have a builder on board. They have their plans ready. As soon as they get a thumbs up from P&Z, they'll be filing for their zoning and building permit. So, any questions?
Great, Craig, appreciate it. Just Craig, real quick, did you get any comments from Darren Astafine that were open issues at all? And I'm sure
those issues were closed yesterday.
Fantastic. So if he's fine, we're fine.
Yeah.
Anything we need to add before I open up to the commission?
No, the property, as you know, is served by public water and sewer. As I mentioned, there's no other changes to the operations of the church, anything like that. This is just basically a house.
It's a house for a house.
Yes.
Okay. Does any commissioner have any questions relative to this application? If you do, just raise your hand and turn your microphone on. I don't see anybody. Okay. Would anybody in the general public like to speak to this application? If you do, raise your hand and turn your microphone on. Okay. So that's it. Anything else before we close?
Nothing else.
Craig, do you have any comments before we close the application?
That's it.
That's it. With that said, I would entertain a motion to close from Jennifer. I think your microphone's on. Yep.
Motion to close.
Jennifer made the motion, looking for a second. Said Jim Rand. Jim Rand's got a second. All's in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Fantastic. Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it. We will deliberate this probably.
I'll try to get it on for next week. If not, it would be May the 4th decision.
Okay. Does that work for you, Craig? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I mean, the sooner the better. Church is eager, but do the work you need to do.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks, Craig. Enjoy the evening. Next item up on our agenda. My second one is coastal site plan review number 288B as in boy, flood stem prevention application. Number 329C as in Charlie, Zachary Brez and Jennifer Kangas at 25 Brush Island Road. Proposal to construct and install a dock consisting of a new fixed ramp, pier, and platform, and to perform related site development activities within regulated areas. The 1.0 plus or minus acre subject property is located on the north side of Brush Island Road, approximately 0.25 miles northwest of its intersection with Nearwater Lane, and is shown on Assessor's map number 56 as lot 17A in the R1 zone. this is a house that's at the end of Noroton Bay, past Weed Beach and whatnot. Is it on Holly Pond or is it on the water?
It's on Holly Pond.
I thought so.
It's
yeah.
off that, when you go down Brush Island Road, on the right, there's a shared driveway between 17, 21, 23, and 25. There's 3-4 houses. You may recall Paul Harris built some of them, and the commission approved that driveway configuration. This is the houses on the left. It faces Stanford, and there's currently a house, a pool, a yard, and the neighbors to both sides have a dock, but they don't have a dock here. But I do want to quickly read aloud the comments received from the Western Connecticut Council of Governments, as well as the state of Connecticut DEP for the record. WestCog sent a memo dated March 15, 2021. Thank you for submitting the attached referral. The opinion of WestCog staff is that the proposal is of local interest and with minimal intermunicipal impact. Therefore, it is not being forwarded to adjacent municipalities, and the regional staff is making no comment. State of Connecticut DEP sent an email dated March 15, provided that the new dock is constructed and operated in accordance with the DEP permit, which is recently granted. I have no additional comments to add on this project. Mr. John Hiltz is present. He can explain a little bit about the application and the fact that they have received state of Connecticut DEP approval late last year and back in August 27. And John, take it away. Tell us how much work is going on here and how much is above elevation 3.4.
Very good. I don't have that number right off the top of my head. John Hiltz for the applicant, Zachary Brez and Jennifer Kangas. But basically what we're doing is we're spanning the upper intertidal region with a pier coming off the backyard. There's a fence there. The grade drops off to what is pretty much a sandy beach. There's some vegetation there that we're avoiding, doing so at the behest of the DEP and the Army. And basically we're spanning out to not what is the mean low water line, but basically what is the low water line because of the restricted nature of Holly Pond in terms of tidal range. And then because of the area is pretty calm and, we're not experiencing wave activity as we would out in the Sound, we're doing a double hinged ramp to basically secure the floating dock. In addition to the double hinge, we'll have chains going from the landward face of the floating dock to the waterward terminus of the pier. So that allows basically the dock to be secured laterally and longitudinally. Water depth there is sufficient to just basically allow for small craft launching and landing at all tides. I don't believe the applicant intends to put a power boat there. If they do, they most likely will get a mooring to put it in slightly deeper water, which is, as you go out, the water gradually increases in depth. Bottom there is sandy. There's no subtidal vegetation. And, as I said previously, we're avoiding the intertidal vegetation along the beach there.
Fantastic. John is a frequent flyer with docks, and just to add, we do have in our packets the Environmental Protection Commission approval letter dated April 12th. So what Mr. Hiltz detailed was all approved by Rich Jacobson and the Environmental Protection Commission already. It looks like it's a long dock overall, being somewhere like around 85 feet, but that's it, get up and over the sensitive areas, right?
Basically, there's that. Originally, when the client approached me, they were hoping to do what's called a 440 dock off of the bank, which I pointed out to him. I said, well, that's all well and good, but you're going to have your floating dock sitting on the beach if you do that. So really, we needed the pier. It's not, nobody likes to spend money, extra that they'd rather not. But unfortunately, in this instance, by installing the pier, we're able to get out to deeper water where the float can actually, have water around it at all tides.
Fantastic. Okay. You had nothing in, right?
Nothing to add.
Can I open it up to the commission to see if any commissioners have any questions for the representative of the applicant? If you do, just turn on your microphone and raise your hand. George Riley, sir?
Just quickly, I'm used to hearing exactly where our jurisdictional limits are, and I'm not sure, clear about that. Is there anything different about Holly Pond and Long Island Sound about where our jurisdictional limit is?
I don't really either here.
My understanding is it's the mean high water line, but of course, you know, you do have some, in these instances, you do have some oversight in terms of flood protection, I think, and you know, making sure that whatever goes on there doesn't, you know, create a flooding hazard, you know, in the event of weather or anything like that.
Fair enough, good. I don't have those concerns, but I was wondering. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, in this case, there's the lawn and then a wall. And somewhere, John, the lawn is high up, way above. So probably somewhere along that wall, it's a very clear demarcation, and then it levels off to the beach.
Actually, Jeffrey, it's not even a wall. It's just basically a bank. It's you know, it does drop off about in the area of the pier about 3 feet, and you know, all along there. It's just the lawn runs down from the house down to the, you know, the area of the beach. As I mentioned, there's a fence there that'll be modified, of course, to allow a gate, you know, for access to the pier. But you know, there's nothing structural along the bank itself.
Got it.
It's very stable. It's all vegetated. It you know, it's kind of nice for them. They don't have to do anything to maintain that.
I mean, I think, George, what part of your question was, usually we say it's like the 3 foot or 4 foot, you know, or area of jurisdiction. I think this one might be a little bit longer because of the way it looks, but it's basically the same thing. Anybody else have any questions? Kara Gately, please.
Yeah, I think just my only question, and I think Mr. Hiltz, you probably already addressed this, but the size of it and the height is to ensure that the new structure rises above, you know, potentially sensitive vegetation or coastal wildlife or, you know, whatever it may be. And then the dock part is extended outward into deeper water that is less affected by the ebb and flow of the lower and higher tides, and which we've heard in the past may affect flooding, or things may get stuck on it, or they may get all that kind of stuff. So I think, right, the design that you probably encourage the clients to get protects both coastal wildlife and resources and sort of those other issues.
There's obviously there's you know, I mean, there's a lot of people who have a lot of say in these matters, and you know, those people are also the Army Corps and the Department of Energy Environmental Protection. For example, we are required to provide 5 foot of clearance at the mean high water line intersection, you know, between that line and the lowest structural member to allow for public access along, you know, the beach. There's that, but of course, you know, with the vegetation adjacent to the pier, you know, the assumption is that, you know, that vegetation can propagate. As you'll notice on the plans, it's called out as high marsh. It's not the smooth cordgrass per se. It's got some patens, you know, the shorter vegetation, but nonetheless, we want to make sure that we don't have any shading impacts on that. And then extending waterward from that, you know, going to the low water line and putting the ramp and the flow out. Obviously, by doing so, you know, you want to avoid continued crossings of the intertidal region because, you know, trampling vegetation and whatnot. That's one of the main reasons why the DEP actually, you know, encourages people to build piers, is so that they do not walk across vegetated areas or areas that are capable of supporting propagated vegetation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kara. Anybody else have any questions on this one? Seeing none, great. Anything we're missing, Jeremy?
Nope, John covered it.
Anything to add before we close, John?
No, I mean, it's, you know, it's pretty straightforward, Doc. Nothing crazy about it. Yeah.
Fantastic. With that said, I would entertain a motion to close. Kara, was that you? Kara Gately makes the motion. Looking for a second. Jennifer Lay, second. All those in favor?
6-0.
6-0. Jim Rand, you're the Marine guy. Usually you're the one that proposes these things.
Okay.
There we go. Next. All right. I need a paper clip for that thing. Get rid of that. Number 3. Land Filling Regrading Application number 498. Donato and Christina Percone at 40 Morley Lane proposes to construct in addition to an existing single-family residence, to construct a new pool and patio areas, installation of stormwater management and related site development activities. The 1.32 plus or minus acre subject property is on the east side of Morley Lane, approximately 675 feet northwest of its intersection with Red Coat Pass, and is shown on Assessor's map number 63 is lot 57 in the R1 zone. So this one's on Delafield Island, right?
Morley Lane, yes, off of Delafield Island, yes.
What do we got, Jeremy?
This is a regrading application. The proposal includes an addition to the house, which really isn't going to require regrading, but more so what requires the regrading is the pool and associated patio. I'll call it the back right corner of the property. And if you've been to the property, you see it slopes downward, and at the bottom of the hill are some wetlands. This project went before the Environmental Protection Commission at their April 7th meeting. You have in your packet a memo from Rich Jacobson, which basically says that EPC is likely to act upon that application at their May meeting, with the condition being that some additional plantings around the back of the pool. I will also note for the record that Health Department sent in comments saying the B100 approval was granted by their department relative to the septic system. And DPW sent in comments, which you should have in your packet. But basically, Tom Nelson's here to tell us a little bit about the grading and drainage associated with the pool installation, which is going in the backyard of the property.
Mr. Nelson, I think you're from McCoy Engineering. Welcome. Please state your name for the record and welcome to the commission.
Good evening, Tom Nelson, professional engineer with McCoy Engineering. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Good. So this is the existing site, existing single-family residence, asphalt driveway. If you've been to the property, as Jeremy mentioned, it's sort of got some unique topography. It's very flat in the front yard. It slopes down to the backyard, and for lack of a better word, there's kind of a valley back here. It comes up to kind of a ledgy knob in this location, and then we slope steeply back into a wetlands area here in the back. Most of the wetlands is off the property. So what's proposed, the existing drainage, I've got this on the existing drainage patterns on the site. Essentially, water comes down from the front yard. It's not too much area. The road is got its own drainage system. So the water comes down to the backyard and then sort of splits around this high point, kind of flowing down the hill, either to the north or the south. So the proposal is a small addition on the back of the house, a small patio in the back of the house, and then a pool and a patio associated with the pool. And then also as part of this plan is some filling of this back area just to kind of soften that existing valley that exists. I'll show some pictures just to kind of give a little better sense if you haven't been to the site. This is the backyard. This is where the addition would be attached. This is looking down from the front yard towards the backyard. The pool is sort of nestles in here. And then this is sort of looking across the backyard, and this is that kind of valley I referenced. So that a new addition would come off here, and then we'd be looking to kind of fill this in modestly just to create a little bit more of a usable yard area. You can kind of see here, this is that ledgy knoll with the existing trees that would remain, and these ledge rocks would all remain. The idea would be to basically just sort of fill this in a little bit, so it's kind of a less of a pronounced depression there. So the drainage patterns really stay the same. We've proposed an underground detention system here to capture runoff from the addition. and the patio. That's designed to infiltrate into the soils. We did test those soils and found that they are pretty good. And then the grading still allows that water to continue off to the north and south as it currently does. And another benefit of the grading we're doing is that this pool is not really that deep into the ground. By filling this area, we don't have a whole lot of excavation necessary for this pool, which is good because they would probably otherwise encounter ledge. And as we go to the east here, this portion of the pool is actually going to be mostly above ground, and we did that to really try to help minimize the amount of this area here. The reason we're not really doing any grading at all. This will just be the wall for the pool will support the pool, and we'll just, these grades will remain natural. We do have a planting. We have a plan to do some planting here to help fortify these slopes and create a buffer to the wetlands. We're ironing that out with EPC. B100A for the septic system shown in the front yard, that's not actually going to get built at this time, but that was shown and approved by the health. And I think that's it. I think generally speaking, drainage on the site stays the same. We're keeping off of these steep slopes. It's really just this backyard area where the work is proposed.
Cool, thank you. You said one thing that flew over the top of my head, Tom. B100A, what's that? That's additional septics?
Sorry, yeah. So for the septic, we had to design a septic system that would comply to the code. B100A references the section of the code. Yeah, I should probably not have mentioned that part, but the basic concept is that we've designed a septic system in the front yard. I've shown it in this inset map here, but it's not getting built. It's just on file with the health department if the existing system ever failed, but we don't anticipate ever having to construct it.
Cool. That's what Jeremy said it was, and you slipped it in there, but I was like, whoa, what was it? Okay. We got it. So there's no the flooding that you said or the water runoff that you said exists today is going to stay that way. It's just make sure we know it's not going to get any worse for the Duns or the Cooks that are north of you. Yeah.
Yeah. We did run analysis on the existing versus proposed runoff conditions, and we have reduced the runoff as a result of the proposed detention system. And that water sort of all ends up into this lower wetlands area. Regardless, the drainage patterns essentially remain the same.
Okay, cool.
Blasting or hole ramming, I think was one question.
Okay, yeah, I missed that. Relative to the blasting or hole ramming, what's the thought process there at this point?
No blasting.
Okay, and how many days of hole ramming do you think there might be?
Always hard to gauge, but as I mentioned, there's really, for the house addition, I don't anticipate any. For the pool, the expectation is that the hope is that we're going to be very shallow in the ledge, and we might just be able to peel that rock away. So I would say, I'm hoping, 1 or 2 days of the hoe ramming would be the most we would need, if any.
Okay. So what do you want to say, 3?
Let's go for 3.
We go for 3. It's the only other thing that I saw. Relative to the EPC said a public hearing wasn't required. Eventually, a more detailed plan will require condition of approval. So you're going to give them the planning plan, which you already talked about, which really doesn't matter to us. There's something about in your narrative where you're taking out a tree in a regulated area.
There's going to have to be a couple trees removed for this.
Okay.
Those are shown on the plans. And as Fred and I, when we went to the site, there are 2 or 3 good-sized trees that are going to be removed. A couple tree branches, which would overhang the pool, or not really the addition, but more so the pool. So there's a little bit of, in fact, that picture, that's one of the trees to be removed. So there's a lot of trees out there.
It's a regulated. Why is it regulated?
Regulated by EPC. It's within
Wetlands.
Okay.
50 feet of the wetlands, yes.
And EPC said it's fine. Okay.
Yes, or they're going to say.
Do you want to go over the, what Darren asked to find from DPW, Tom, gave us a long, memo. I think there's nothing really in here that you haven't done, but I don't think he's got any issues, right? And then the last piece said he just wants a standard as-built survey and all that stuff. That's fine, right?
Yeah, I think in general, those are fairly typical of his comments. He did ask
Yeah.
for some calculation backup on the peak flow analysis. We can certainly provide that. It has all been designed for peak flow attenuation. So we'd certainly be happy to, provide a more detailed stormwater report. And otherwise, yeah, there's no issues with any of the comments we had from Darren. We're happy to comply with all of them.
Fantastic. Any commissioners have any questions on this application? Kara Gately, your hands up?
Yeah, only, I mean, just because, right, the issue of the statutory section of the alternate septic plan, and I will confess I am not a septic expert, but I do find it's become sort of a issue that is becoming more and more important. So I guess if the property is on sewer, I'm guessing it's on septic, not sewer. Yes. And so where is the current septic?
Sure. So the existing septic is in the front yard. It's actually outlined here in this dash line, and it's functional. There's no issues with it. And we did do testing on the lot and found that, there are suitable soils here in this front yard. If for whatever reason they ever did need to replace this system, it would go back in the front yard because there is no sewers available to us. And that's the onus is on us per the health code to basically prove that system can be designed per code before we're allowed to expand anything else on the property. So that's the reason we've got this this other alternative septic shown here.
Okay, and so the septic currently is in the front, it's working, all the machinery, right? Because it seems like with there'll be sort of like heavy machinery necessary to do some of the work for the pool. They can access where they need to go without potentially damaging the septic system or causing any issues, which I think would probably, be a concern for neighbors or just just anyone. So that could all happen, right, without there being damage to the current septic system.
Yes, it is something that is absolutely good to point out, and it is. We do have to bring equipment over the existing septic system.
Yeah.
Just because of the steep slopes on the property, unfortunately. Certainly not my first choice, but from the driveway, we really have no access to this backyard. So what we've proposed is, and it's fairly common, what we'll do is we'll actually build the soil up temporarily. And it's, we call it, sort of like a tracking pad, but what we do is essentially bridge that septic system with soil so that those machinery will not have any impact to the fields. And the fields themselves are constructed out of gravel trench, with perforated PVC pipe, which is pretty, it has a pretty good load rating. It's not like a plastic infiltrator unit or something that would be more susceptible to crushing. So we're confident that, we've definitely sort of flagged that area and created some additional construction fencing to make sure that we don't end up accidentally parking on the system, but for, the access required for the construction, we should be fine.
Thank you. And I guess, I'm sorry, my final question is given, I know we're not going to, there's not contemplation of doing blasting, but there is contemplation, right? There will, hoe ramming will likely be necessary. And I guess what's the anticipated timing, in terms of when they are thinking of beginning the hoe ramming? It just currently, because more people are working from home and more, kids, while we did go back, into school, there are occasions where people are back remote. And so noise and that kind of has become more of a concern for adjoining neighbors, given, they're working at home, they're not in an office. And so I guess what when are they contemplating starting the project? Will it be during school and work hours, when neighbors may be working or kids may be, unfortunately remote and then at school? Hopefully they're not, but I just think that's a question that has to be asked in, this current time, the current environment we're in.
Sure, yeah. So the reality is, and I touched base with the architect earlier this week. It doesn't look like this project is going to get off the ground for this summer. As you guys have probably noticed, everybody's putting in pools, and to line up a pool contractor for a pool this summer, that ship has sailed. So they will likely be looking at this as more of a summer 2022 project. My anticipation is that, if everything goes smoothly, they would probably be starting in the fall, and the order of work would probably be to, we don't want to try to build the house addition over top of a finished pool patio. So the likelihood is that it'll be, at least the foundation for the house first and then the pool after. So, the idea, with the concrete work, that would either have to happen this fall or next spring. Typically wouldn't be in the middle of the winter. And,
Right.
Business hours would be, the typical, 8 to 5, sort of 8 to 4.
But it looks like that's probably further off and not in the current where everybody's home all the time trying to be productive during the same hours that people would be home around.
Yeah, I think this, the hope is that there's be minimal hole ramming, but yeah, the anticipation is this project wouldn't start until after summer.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Great, thanks, Kara. Go ahead, Jen.
Okay, so I'm sorry because I probably know too much about septic. So a couple questions. So we have a 4-bedroom house that's going to a 5-bedroom. Is that correct?
Yes,
so that's
it is.
how we're able to use a 4-bedroom septic, because we get 1 allowed up. So Kara, does that make sense? So you're allowed by right 1 up, right? So it's not my septic system and it's not my money, but we are driving over fields, right? Like, what are we driving over? So, I mean, I would not advise the client to, I'm a real estate agent. I work for Douglas Elliman, just in case anyone does not know, or whatever. I'm an independent contractor. I would not advise my clients to do that, right? Like and my septic guy, I'm sure if I called who services my septic in many homes in Darien, he'd be like, no, Jen, don't drive over your septic in any way, shape, or form, tank, fields, etc. So I guess I want to just say that because I think that's not that. I don't know if the I don't know. I wouldn't advise if my client. I guess I'm saying if I don't think I don't know. It's not advisable. But what's the? I guess the worst case is they ruin their septic and they're paying like lots of money. I hope they realize it costs a lot of money to replace a septic to do this. Am I off? Because this is like I have a septic and I wouldn't drive over it.
But
I think it's always a sensitive area, and it's something you need to be aware of. I think we're concerned if people don't know where their septic is, and a lot of times, if you have tree work or something, and they come in and they put the stabilizer bars down, and that can cause issues. But in general, there's a way to protect the fields. I mean, we're driving over infrastructure all the time. So it's really, just a matter of creating a suitable base material for those vehicles to transfer on. And that's what we've proposed in this area, sort of bridging the soils so that those tires from those vehicles are not going to rut into the soil, because that would be what would affect it. The gravel trench and the pipe itself can absolutely support the load of the vehicles. It's the soils that we're looking to stabilize, and that's where this entrance sort of comes into play, and we just create a suitable soil base to allow those vehicles to pass over that system without sinking into the ground there.
Okay.
So, okay, thanks, John. Good question. And same with Kara. So in your narrative, it says the septic system front yard will be protected during construction. Who's the guy that says yes, it's protected or not? Is that you? Is it the health department? I know it's not Dave Keating. I don't think it's Peter Solheim, but who says, yeah, you protected it enough? Is that you as the engineer signing off on it, or is it the health department?
In general, I don't know that the health department's going to be involved in this. So it would be, the onus would be on the contractor to follow the plans. Certainly happy to, my plan is, I obviously don't want them to inadvertently destroy the septic either. So, I'm happy to assist and make sure that that goes in as per plan.
So to me, that would be a condition of approval that you sign off that as a certified engineer, that the septic system is protected as you designed on your plan before the next day, the next day these guys start driving trucks over it.
Yeah, I think we could sort of link that to a typical, erosion controls, making sure the silt fence is in, and then this is sort of part of, very similarly, silt fence is there to protect erosion, and there's a tracking apron is there to protect the septic.
Okay, that's good enough, right, Jeremy?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, so
good point, ladies. Thank you for making sure we didn't miss that. Anybody else have any questions for this applicant's representative? Larry looks okay. Jim looks okay. George looks okay. Jim Rand, yes, sir.
I'm having a little trouble with the orientation, and if I'm getting off the subject, I apologize. But on the map, the drawing that's on the screen now, where is Goodwise River relative to what we see on the map?
I can actually pull up the GIS if you want. Let's see.
Well,
It's a ways away.
okay, so
There's
okay, so
Goodwise.
the rivers, I see the river over here.
Yeah.
no, that is the Goodwise River at the bottom. I think, well, no, it's to the,
It goes,
to the north.
you can't see where my finger is.
Sorry.
Okay.
This is Goodwise River here. Am I?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
So this-
so it's a little to the north and west.
Okay,
Yes.
I grew up across the river, and my brothers, and there's 3 or 4 graveyards along the river on the
On the other side of Morley Lane, yes.
no, on the Morley Lane side.
Yeah,
And we used to sleep out there at night to see if there any ghosts came, and then one of us would get frightened and we all run home and wake up my parents. But I was just, this property's sufficiently removed from the river that
river's on the other side.
there wouldn't be any graveyards there. I'm just,
That's good news.
as far as I know.
Unlikely to disturb the ghosts.
I appreciate that question because I wouldn't have known that not growing up here. And I think, especially with the septic, you wouldn't want, God, I mean, I can't, yeah. I think that's a great point to bring up. Thank you, Jim.
That's fun. Anybody else have any questions, comments, changes? Larry and George, you're okay? Okay, and Jeremy, we miss anything? We're
Nope,
good?
nothing to add.
Okay, this is gonna be a one-story addition over a basement, right? The addition,
It might be a 2-story addition over basement.
okay. So that one bay window that you showed, that's going away?
That's
Yeah.
my understanding, yes. Yeah, this
Okay.
is the basement level, that's the first floor level, and then the second floor level above. So I believe it's all 3 stories.
Okay, got it. All right. With that said, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing. Jen makes the motion, looking for a second. Kara's got the, Jim Rand's got the second. He's on the scoreboard. Sorry, Kara. All those in favor? Thank you. 6-0. Great, fantastic.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Okay, that's gonna close the public hearing for tonight. Give me a second, I'll put my stuff away. Yeah, that's what I had nothing, that's what nothing. Put that, okay. All right, next. We're gonna go into the public hearing. I'm sorry, general meeting. We have continued deliberations only. It's on the following. Proposed amendments to the Darien zoning regulations COZR number 4-2020 business site plan application number 128B as in boy, special permit application number 314 711 Inc. 306 Boston Post Road. I'm not going to read the rest of it. That's okay, right, Jeremy?
Yep.
Okay. Again, this is going to be our second night of deliberations on the 711 application that's at the former Duchess or the current Duchess site. The first one, we really talked about the zoning text amendment. So what we would like to do tonight, and Jim ran, it's no real fault of yours, but he had some technical difficulties coming in and out. So I would like to continue the discussion on the the proposed text amendment changes. And then after that, go into the site plan aspects of the application. On our agenda tonight, we also have on there the special permit application aspects. I think we're going to hold off on that to another meeting.
Yes.
Okay, because the special permit's got to do with traffic and whatnot. We could probably talk about that for hours. So if we could kind of, I think, go back to the text amendment changes, of which we have the proposed regulation change, talk about that for a few minutes, wherever long we need to. And then we can transition over to the site plan that they put forth. And then we'll see how much we'll probably talk about this, what, 45 minutes?
Yeah,
Maybe
about that.
something like that. Now, Jeremy, you gave us green sheets and
Yes.
pink sheets.
We have you may
Go right
recall
ahead.
the applicant's submittal, which talks about the regulation amendment proposals, is 3 pages.
Yep.
That was submitted for the record by the applicant. We've gave that to the commission for the first set of deliberations on April 6th, 2 weeks ago. Again, you have that before you tonight, and you have a green form that we put together, which kind of summarizes what the applicant put together. And
Did you edit this green sheet from last week?
we have not modified it.
Okay, good.
And so we went through, you may recall last week, we went through quite methodically section 1056, 210, 755. And then we went through once. I think your idea is we'll start with Jim and then run through the rest of the commission again to enhance or supplement what we talked about last time.
Okay, so Jim Rand, what I would like to do is you to make your statement, questions, comment, ask any questions that you have, because we went through this once. It's great for us to go through it a second time because this is kind of important. But if you want to start out with any questions you may have, and I don't know when you technically your technical issue started, but we went through the white sheet, which is this one that says zoning amendments, and then we matched it up with the green sheet. And the two of them blend together, but the floor is yours if you want to ask Jeremy any questions, or Fred's not here, but Jeremy is really the quote unquote architect of this way to do it. And we've done this before. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I guess, I don't know what, I mean, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, and so I think it probably falls to Jeremy to give at least me some guidance. But going back to the first hearing, there was the applicant was of the view that the Darien zoning regulations were old-fashioned, out of date, faulty in one way or another. I have a couple of comments or thoughts. One is, I don't think the statement's true. That is to say, the Planning and Zoning Commission periodically reviews our regulations and in fact had just conducted a review, I'm going to say, what, Jeremy, 24 months ago or something like that. And the issue, sorry?
No, go ahead. I'll let you keep going.
Okay, and the issues that the applicant takes issues with were not raised. And the existing, let's say, call them stakeholders, the residents of Darien and the other regulatory bodies in town had ample opportunity to raise these issues and did not. Therefore, I'm of the view that at least the other stakeholders in town did not consider that the rules are outdated. Secondly, I don't believe that the town or the commission has any affirmative application, has any affirmative obligation to change its rules at the demand of a third party, clearly a third party, such as the applicant that has an interest in the existing regulations, can make an application. But that's not to say that we're under any obligation other than to consider it and act as we think best. So I mean, and finally, the relief sought or the changes sought by the applicant, to my understanding, benefit only the applicant. I think the applicant has had ample opportunity to summarize or outline the benefit that could accrue to the town of Darien by making these changes, but I haven't heard any. So I'm a little bit concerned that we're getting off on the wrong foot, or we're starting from the wrong foundation. That's not a question so much, I suppose, but it's the approach taken by the applicant and the rationale put forward by the applicant strikes me as I don't know. I don't think it stands on its own feet.
I mean, one thing I think what I said before, and I can say it again, is we did a thing called the Town Plan of Conservation Development. That's supposed to be kind of a roadmap or a blueprint or a guide to what you should do to the zoning code for the next 10 years. There's nothing in the Town Plan of Conservation Development that says that our service business or our gas station regulations or quote unquote out of date. Out of date, which is kind of what you said. We also, to your point, we did review the entire commercial section of the zoning code some 24 months ago. We changed a lot of districts, we combined districts, we did all that. We never got into the residential section to change those because we kind of ran out of time, and I think we also ran out of money. But we also, prior to doing the commercial, we did all the signage stuff. So I think your point is very well taken, and your comments are very well taken, that it's not in the Town Plan of Conservation Development that we should change anything. We did review the entire zoning code in the commercial side 24 months ago, and I don't know the exact date. We did review the entire signage side, prior to doing the commercial section, and we didn't change it then. And you're right. I mean, I don't think any other gas station had asked for a change. So maybe it is self-serving, but I think your point's well taken. Go ahead, Jeremy.
No, I was going to say, if there's any other commission members that want to chime in on the zoning aspects, we'll take that now as well.
Yeah. Any other commissions want to make it? Are you good for a second, Jim, or do you want Jeremy to go through what we did last time first?
No, going through it again isn't necessary. I had an opportunity to watch I went to the videotape, so to speak.
War Wolf, man.
Yeah, Jim,
Thanks for the
prior to
opportunity to listen to my views, whether you find them useful or not, it's a different issue. I'm done.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak to or add to Jim's comments or refute Jim's comments or anything relative to that? Anything we talked about relative to the, right now we're still on the proposed zoning text change. That's the one piece of the puzzle we're looking at, which is the green sheet. Jennifer, you're,
No, you gotta mute.
okay,
This can be for the commission members only, though.
yeah. Everyone else is good? If you want to say something, please just raise your hand or turn your microphone on.
Commission members.
Commissioner, go ahead, Kara.
I think, I'm not going to rehash what I said last week about, any of these issues, but I think maybe in case there's new members of the public, not new, but people who were not on last week when we began the discussion, that explaining the sort of what criteria and what the appropriate, not standard of review, but the criteria that's appropriate when considering and deliberating on proposed regulation amendments might be helpful, because I think I see some names that weren't there last week. And I think that's to not have people like re-listen to things from last week. I think maybe, Jeremy, whoever wants to do it, I think that would be maybe helpful, rather than having us each sort of rehash what we said last week, but maybe going over again, what, if you guys think that would be helpful.
I think that's a good idea, Kara. The commission's going to look at this application from three different aspects. The first, which you've heard tonight, is the proposed request to modify the zoning regulations. The standard set forth in the state statute is for the commission would have to make an affirmative finding that the proposed regulation amendments are consistent with the town plan of conservation and development. The Darien town plan of conservation and development was completed in 2016. It's about 5 years old. It's on the town website. It's available in the library and in our office for review. But the commission's got to look at how this proposal fits with the town plan and these regulation changes, especially. The other standards that the commission's going to look at tonight and at next time they deliberate will be the aspects of the special permit and the site plan. The special permit standards are in section 1005 A through E of the regulations, which talk about the commission must make specific findings relative to the location and size of the utes, the nature and intensity of the operations, etc. They're all laid out in section 1005 A through E of the regulations. In addition, the commission is going to look at the site plan, how the site is laid out, the proposed building, the parking, and that's outlined in section 1020 of the regulations. So the commission's got to make a number of findings, not only on the zoning regulation amendments, but on the site plan and special permit. So it's important that the commission be methodical, touch on these various issues. We touched on the April 6th meeting, the zoning regulation amendments, talked a little bit about it tonight. And as Chairman Olveni mentioned, we'll start in with the site plan issues tonight and continue that conversation at a future meeting as well. What will happen once the commission deliberates, myself and fellow staff member Fred Donite will draft a resolution which kind of is the consensus findings of the commission. The commission will review that and change it, modify it, whatever. And the commission eventually has to vote on the application. It will take 4 affirmative votes of the commission for this to
pass the whatever the resolution is.
Right. That's correct.
Right.
4 affirmative to pass. If the resolution is in favor, it takes 4 yes votes.
Whereas against takes 4 yes votes. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So that's, I'm glad, Kara, that's good background for commission members and the public.
This is tonight. Steve, I think we should get some additional clarification from the commission on 1056.3 of the regulations. I believe last week there was some limited deliberations on that one particular aspect. That particular section of the reg relates specifically to whether the commission is going to require that all gas stations include a service aspect with the gas station. I would just like the commission to further weigh in on which direction you wish to go on that one aspect.
Okay, well, let me start with a question, and what deems service. So
That's
for
good.
example, the Exxon gas station, which is down by Shake Shack
Mhm.
in that neck of the woods, those guys don't do any service, but I fill my car with air at that gas station.
I think every gas
Exactly.
station, I'm not an expert in gas stations, but I think almost every gas station you will find has air somewhere on the property.
Okay.
I don't know if that's, I'd be guessing whether that's a state requirement or whatever, but what I've noticed in my experience is I would not consider air a service.
Me neither, but I just don't want to say yes, no, or maybe so. I mean, I know the Shell gas station, which some people used to call it Texaco, that's got a car wash and place to vacuum out your car. The other one, the one that's standard next to it, which is not standard anymore, that's got air and they have nothing. So I
So
don't
those
want,
would not be considered service. Vernal's, which has
Yep.
2 garage bays, Vernal's is right near Trader Joe's, that I would consider service because they have the bays where you can pull your car in, they'll put you on a lift, and whatever they do.
and so is the other one on Noroton Avenue, they have lifts.
I just looked it up, guys. So in the state of Connecticut, it says state law requires licensed full retailers, gas or service stations that sell motor fuel to the public to provide an operable free air compressor during their business hours.
So that might be service. Air could be,
No, air is not.
there's not service.
I would not consider that. service.
Required by law.
It's required by law, Jen?
No,
Yeah, it's a state law.
they're not service, they're doing nothing.
Okay,
So I would consider service where there's a human being, at least my opinion, servicing your car. Your car is being,
fixed.
not you doing it yourself,
Right.
or calling the guy who's running the concession stand or the cash register to come.
Right, so the question that Fred brought up and is on the green sheet page 2 is item F is section 1056.3 to clarify that this section only applies to stations that include service and repair of automobiles.
Propose some additional wording to make it clear that where you have service, there needs to be a building and repair, but what the applicant has proposed a sentence at the end, no such repair building shall be required when the station is licensed only as a gas station.
So that's the yellow sign that's on the side of a building that says this is also a service station. You see those
Yeah,
signs?
yes,
So this is not gonna have that.
that's correct,
Exxon doesn't have it,
that's correct.
and the other one doesn't have it. So what they're proposing makes a little bit of sense, right? Because we already have 2 or 3 gas stations that don't have service.
I have no problem with it.
Well,
Right.
I'm sorry, I interrupted someone.
Like I said, I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
But hold on, Karen, 1 second. So Fred, are we answering your question, kind of, sort of?
Yeah, yes, I think that's I think that's good. I think it's just important to clarify whether the commission wants to keep the regulations, the way the regulations are worded now is that the service component is required for any gas station in town. We need to know if the commission wishes to keep that regulation in place and require that service stations be connected to all gas stations in the town.
Kara, go ahead, Kara.
So I guess before I can feel comfortable changing a regulation, and again, I know I've said this before, I am inherently just uncomfortable doing an applicant by applicant reg amendment process, because then you're not taking a really full holistic view of the town as a whole and viewing your regulations in conjunction with your town plan of conservation development and being thoughtful about your regs and the plan as a whole, right? If you're doing it applicant by applicant, and changing things, right? And it seems reasonable in and of itself, like tiny little change to a regulation. And then later on, you've made, 1,000 tiny little changes, and you've had now an impact you did not intend. And there's collateral consequences that were not intended. So in and of itself, yeah, it seems fine. But I guess my question is, with that long ramble about where my concerns come from is, right, so we do understand that there are gas stations in town that do not, perhaps by our regulatory standards or by, a state definition, have service. And so I know it has come up before, and I apologize, but this has been a big application and a lot of information and a lot of components to it. I think I need to look at and have a full understanding of how those gas stations in town, I know some were grandfathered and some came about to be able to just have gas without service given our current regs. And I know we went through this exercise, so I apologize, but that is sort of, as we're deliberating, that's what I need to go back and refresh my recollection on, and go back through the materials that we have gathered and have posted and have considered. And that sort of needs to better understand how those came about without a reg change. And then think about what this reg change, because, right, they're not asking for one. There's a lot in here, and I need to see it full picture, and one on top, and how it all, when it's all overlaid together, what the big picture looks like for the whole town, not just for this one applicant. And that's where I come from. That's where I come at each of the proposed reg changes.
Got it. Yes, I'm not going to try to partially answer your question. Like, for example, I always call it the Texaco, but now I think it's a Shell station, and the one next to it, I always call it Standard. I forget what it is now, but both of those, we have those resolutions. Both of those resolutions were actually from the same applicant, or same lawyer for the applicant. They just put forth an application to have just gas and didn't make any mention of changing any text amendments. So they got approved without a text change. Maybe.
Well, Fred and I can go through the record,
right,
and go through the file, go
Yeah.
through the
But I
minutes.
think that application is on the record in the file, and I think what I would have to do to get
But sorry.
comfortable, look at
Yeah.
when the regs were last amended, when that application went through, are they grandfather? Like, I think there's a lot more to consider, and each reg change in and of itself, taken independently but not looked at as a whole, I don't think does service, and I don't think is how we're supposed to consider when there, if there's just one reg change, fine, you look at it by itself, but when there's this many, and we're supposed to view them in light of the town plan of conservation and development, I think we have to look at it holistically and what the impact of them all together in the aggregate, how that plays in with the town plan. And I think that's why I don't like cherry picking each one independently, though I know, they're each independent requests, and maybe some are fine, but my analysis has to be looking at each independently, and then how they all fit together, and what the change in its totality, what that impact is, and how that plays with the town plan.
Okay.
Especially given that there's other gas stations that have it, so it's like, okay, do we need to do this change? Because we may have to, and that may be appropriate.
Okay. George Riley, your mic is on.
I respectfully disagree with my commissioner friend, Kara. I think we should take the opportunity when it arises to clean up, may I say, our regulations, to make them consistent with reality. I think that's what we said the last time we discussed this subject.
Change. I agree.
Because the reality is that there do exist gas stations that are not service stations, and I think that's fine, and I think there will be more in the future, and we don't have to require repair facilities with everybody who wants to sell gas. So I don't have a problem with this particular amendment, and I think It stands alone, and I have no problem with it as such.
Jen Leahy?
Can I just clarify my position? I'm sorry, Jen. I
I
did
was
not
pretty
say,
clear on your position, Kara. I really was very clear about what you were just saying at some length, so I don't need clarity.
no, I would like to
Previously.
clarify because I think you
Oh,
misstate.
well, all right.
I'm not saying that they can't, I think one, in particular ones can be approved. They don't all have to be improved, but considering them all and then how past things happen, we need to have a full understanding of that. And some may appropriately be independently approved. But I think we have to consider all of them as a whole in light of the town plan and understand things that may not currently be in line with our regulations and why. And if some have to be cleaned up, then I think that's appropriate. So I think we kind of agree on that.
Okay. Jen?
I agree, this particular regulation should be cleaned up, that a repair building is not required. If,
56.3.
Great.
if it's, right, if there's no service at the station.
Okay. Larry or Jim?
Larry.
Larry, your mic is on?
Yeah, I'll just, I mean, I could definitely argue both ways on this one, realistically, but I think the only danger I do worry heavily about unintended consequences, but this seems to be pretty straightforward to me, that this is a change that just reflects reality. And, in general, I want our business owners to be able to run their businesses the way they'd like to, with as little, issues with and regulations from us. So if someone wants to sell just gas and not have to replace spark plugs, I think that's that's kind of reasonable.
Okay.
Tim, now, the next section, the proposed amendment to 1056.5 is somewhat similar in terms of what the applicant has put forth, because this section of the reg says you must have a disabled vehicle storage area or a gas station.
Right, see, personally, I think that's a good thing, because I think most of the gas stations, like the ones I go to, especially the one I keep calling the standard, there's a spot there where you park overnight. It's a spot it's where the air pumps are.
Right, what they're saying,
They want to make that go away.
overnight storage and parking of vehicles.
No, I'm sorry, Jeremy. Steve, I think it just makes sense. It's just saying if you're not fixing cars, you don't need a place to store the cars that you're fixing.
Right. But see, I think one of Kara's points last week was that, you come off the highway, your car's dead, you can park it there and someone else can pick you up. I mean, you're right. This one can go either way too, but I get the point both ways.
See, I don't know. I don't think this one, I look at this one different. I think what Kara said was right, where we have to use a little bit of logic. This one, I feel like if there's something wrong with my car, I'm pulling into the nearest gas station.
Then just leave it there and call your, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, brother, sister, kid, Uber. I'm dumping my car here and having, the car dealership, Lexus dealer, pick it up tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think this one, I don't have enough data, and I don't know. This one I just don't feel comfortable making any changes on, especially with the gas. I mean, with the air, which is required. Like, I just feel like there's a lot of moving parts for this, and just logic that we would need a lot more time to deliberate and to make sure we're keeping
May I interject? The provision of the proposed amendment is that no such storage area shall be required when the
Right.
station will be licensed. So if a gas station wants to permit you to park your disabled car in their parking lot because you just drove in off the highway, they can do that. I mean, it's not a logical place. I would typically want my disabled car in a place where it's not going to be repaired, but I guess under extraordinary circumstances, you might. I think the language is sufficiently flexible and appropriate for a non-repair facility, that it would help clarify the issue.
How did you look?
Clearly have never been stranded in your car, like, and have felt unsafe, but some of us.
Fred, how did- So,
You could be stranded in a diner parking lot too, I suppose, you know, any place.
Diners don't get, like, gas stations are where if your car runs out of gas or your car has a flat tire, you would go. You wouldn't go to get pancakes at the diner. No, you would go somewhere where potentially you could, if there's an issue with your car, no, because they would have oil, arguably, and the diner wouldn't. They would have air if your tire was flat and the diner wouldn't. They would have gas if you ran out of gas and the diner wouldn't. And then if you were wrong because you're not a mechanic and it wasn't gas, it wasn't, you know, air in your tire, it was power steering or a belt was broken and you had to leave your car there and it was going to take hours for a tow truck, you would want to be able to be safely leaving your car there. And
My
get
point
it,
is, this language permits
and the
that.
diner couldn't provide that for you.
This language permits that.
No such storage area shall be required.
Therefore, it's permissible.
I don't know if I agree with you on that.
Fred, how did you interpret this question? Did you have any
I'm
questions?
sorry, I missed some of that discussion. So we're on to 1056.5, the storage of vehicles.
Yes.
Yeah, Fred's also working the ARB meeting tonight.
I'm
so-
sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Fred. It's
No, it's totally fine, totally fine. But as I mentioned last week, I think it was last week that we deliberated on this, but I thought the logical directive here was that if you were to permit the storage of disabled vehicles on the site, that goes hand in hand with the service use of the gas station, right? So would it be logical to require the storage of disabled vehicles on the site if the commission was not requiring that all gas stations have a service component to the use? I really think they go hand in hand, but ultimately this is the call of the call of the commission here.
I got you. I mean, the reason why the applicant is doing it is because they have a tight parking issue. And then I want to give up a parking space for storage.
Well, and they don't service vehicles.
No service vehicles.
So why would they, the argument is, if we don't service vehicles, I don't think the commission wants us to start storing vehicles that are broken down on our property, because we would then have to have that area under the current regs.
Right.
Because that's what the current regs require, is a disabled vehicle storage area of at least 500 square feet.
Which is 2 parking spaces. Parking space is 250 square
Gas
feet.
stations in town that don't service, that have space to store vehicles that need to be repaired or serviced.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, do they or do they not? Was that your question?
I'm saying do they? So, right, we have gas stations in town that have received approval previously to just provide gas, and they do not provide full, mechanical service, while they all provide air as required by state law. Do they have a storage area, even though they're just mainly providing gas and they do not provide vehicle repair?
I think the answer to that question, Kara, is that it goes to the parking ratio. This property, to comply with parking, they need 24 spaces, right? If they had to give up 2 spaces for permanent storage, which is required, then they really would only have 22 spaces, which is against the application. The gas station that I keep talking about, which I call the Standard Oil one, they only need 12 parking spaces. They got 18. So it's not really an issue. Like the Exxon station that is over by Shake Shack has got parking spaces, but they don't need any parking spaces because they don't, there's nothing there.
Right, there's a small convenience
It's-
store and they have
Correct.
6 or 8 spaces.
There's 6 or 8 spaces, they only need 2. So in practically,
They all have a
There's-
storage area.
there is storage area. I mean, my point is relative to this is, you know, I drive a BMW, right? If my car breaks down, I want to park it at a gas station, call BMW, say, I left my car at blah, blah, blah gas station, go pick it up tomorrow, and call my wife and say, take me home.
Right.
That's what I'm gonna do. Because I know that I wouldn't let it, because even the car's under warranty, if I drive a Lexus, I'm not, you know, it's everything is under warranty. That's why you quote unquote would leave it there overnight and dump it, because whoever your leasing company or warranty company, they can come chase it down the next day and it doesn't cost me a nickel. But that's the point. I mean, we'll see. To Kara's point originally, when we get the resolution back, you're gonna look at it holistically, look at all the points. Some are cleanup items and some are flat out changes. You know, the cleanup items have always been, if we're here and we can clean it up, you know, just clean it up. If it's a flat out change, you know, that's when we can sit there, agree with it, or don't agree with it. So when it comes back holistically, we can look at the whole thing holistically. With that said, I would like to move on to the second piece of the application, as we debated once already, and get on the site plan. But if anyone wants to stay on the text amendment changes and talk about it for another couple minutes, we're more than welcome to. Okay? Right, okay, with that said, so now we're gonna get rid of the green sheet. We're gonna go to the pink sheet. The pink sheet is 3 pages. The first page really only talks to the site plan. Pages 2 and 3 get into the special permit application. So tonight, what I would like to do is go through page 1, which is the site plan. And then for another meeting, we're gonna do pages 2 and 3, right?
Correct.
Okay, and just so you know, there's a time deadline. We have to get this whole thing done within 65 days of,
The close of the public hearing, which would be, I believe, May 18th or 20th.
okay,
So our goal will be to maybe have a draft resolution ready for possibly as soon as May 4th,
okay.
maybe May 11th, maybe
Okay.
May 18th.
Because I want everyone to make sure, and I'm not, the last thing I want to do is get to day 64 and have to put in a special meeting on a Thursday night. You know, it's not even in consideration. So we have to go through this. Then we're gonna do another meeting to go through the special permit. We're gonna look at this draft resolution at least 2 meetings.
Yeah,
At
I
least.
would guess it's, there's a lot of topics to cover, so
Right.
it's going to be thorough. So certainly it's unlikely to be all shipshape in one night, would be
Correct.
my belief.
Correct, okay. It's just, this is from experience, when these things come up, it takes a long time. So with that said, with regards to the site plan, the things that were important to me is I personally think they should have spun the building and made the front of the building face the road and split the pumps on the left side and right side. That to me would have been an alternate site plan where I think it would have fit better. They didn't want to do that for some reason. They could have gone to Fletcher and asked for a curb cut out the back. They never did that, where you could have gone through the neighbor's property, get out the back. That to me is an important issue, because I personally think that the site is orientated wrong. I brought pictures of, and I made stories about when I went down to lacrosse tournaments in Jersey, and all the things are, you stand right at it, and there's gas pumps on the left, pumps on the right. That's how Exxon is. But I didn't like that aspect. The other thing I think is important is this property only has 1 curb cut coming in and curb cut going out. There's only 1. You know, it's part of my business practice for years. We used to build gas convenience stores down south in like the Carolinas. Every single one of those on a corner, and every single one of them has, you know, if it's on a corner, it probably has 4 curb cuts, which is 2 on each corner. And if it's not on a corner, it has at least 2 in the front. You know, we can't, this one doesn't have that. They never showed us an alternate site plan with that kind of stuff. They did it as part of the discussions, and I think I picked up on it and Michael Galante picked up on it. They took away 2 or 1 of the parking spaces in the front.
Right.
Okay. Where their first site plan, they had, 25 parking spaces because, Kara drives a Suburban, she backs out, the thing's 8 feet long, nobody can get in because she's going to block all the traffic. And they realized that, they redid the site plan because there's a lot of Suburbans in our town. What else is important? Relative to the fishbowl, I've got my own belief on that. I could have sworn the fishbowl had to have windows on 3 sides or, on 3 sides or in the back. This building only has windows on 1 side. That guy, quote unquote, his name was Tommy. He reviewed it and he said, fishbowl, and they gave us that document. I will make sure that document, if it says it has to have windows on 3 sides, we only have windows in the front. They made them bigger and they're not blocked. So maybe that's right. I think that's site plan related. They did take care of the loading dock area. They're going to make those the spaces that are blocking the loading dock. Those are going to be employee parking. Maybe that's a way to fix it. But the thing that I also didn't like is relative to the site plan. If the Coca-Cola truck comes in with the Coke and the loading dock is taken, they're going to park it in a spot that's no parking until they can clear out those spots, and then they can park it back in there. That's the way they. Well, that's the way they designed it originally. That's what they said originally, and then they said, "Oh, we're going to make those 2 spaces employee spaces now." So if the Coca-Cola guy comes in, he walks inside the building, say, "Hey, I'm here," and then the clerk who's at the counter goes and moves his car, and then he pulls into the space. But that sign's going to say no parking there. I mean, it's a tight site. It's a tight site for what they're trying to do. I mean, I've talked enough. We went over the lighting. The lighting's okay. They're supposed to raise the lighting. The canopy's okay. There's no signage on there. The screening was okay. Most of the stuff they put forth was okay. I think the screening of the roof was okay. But Jeremy, you want to go through this methodically the way you do it, or you want to ask the commissioners?
Let's go around one time with the commission members. That'll give us a good flavor for what issues might remain.
Who wants to go first on site plan aspects and touch on stuff? Raise your hand. I don't care. George Riley, your light is on?
Sure. I have a couple of thoughts that are oriented around what they have proposed. I dislike the placement of the dumpster. I would put it where it currently exists on the site, which is on the other side of the property. I don't think it's fair to do that to the commercial building next door. And I don't think it's necessary to do that. And I think putting it there creates obstacles, as you were just describing, whether it's employee parking or using the loading dock there. Probably my bigger concern is the number of pumps, and I would reduce the number of pumps or hoses, I guess it is. They currently propose 12 hoses, and I would cut that to 8 hoses anyway. Those are my principal concerns. The driveway ingress and egress has always been a bugaboo, but I'm not sure we do much to alleviate any issues if we prohibit a left-hand turn, even though I remain convinced that's what the people who use the property currently favor. But anyway, I don't, but traffic remains an overall concern. When the local traffic authority says that, quoting their expert, that this property will create an untenable traffic situation, I think that's a greater concern, which is a reason I favor fewer pumps or fewer hoses, whatever it is. Their representative indicated that the number of visits is really dictated by the number of hoses, basically. So I would reduce that. but I'm, so I would not approve it with that number of hoses. I wouldn't approve it with the placement of the current dumpster. Those are my principal concerns. Obviously, we've talked about the amendments. I don't like the quick service restaurant and some other things, but those are different. So I'll leave it at that for the site plan right now.
With regards to the traffic, you're 100% correct. The number of hoses affects traffic, affects everything else. But what I would like to do is, and it all goes together. Don't get me wrong, but I really want to kind of sort of debate the traffic issue and the special permit on our next, quote unquote debate or deliberation period. But you're 100% correct. If you have less hoses, you sell less gas, you have less traffic, and it's the number of pumps, which is 6 pumps and 12 hoses, goes to the site plan. So they are 100% related. Next. Anybody else? Larry, Kara, go ahead. Go ahead, Kara.
So I agree with George on dumpster placement. I think site plan and adverse impact on neighbors and value and accessibility and value and, impact on neighbors, including commercial neighbors, needs to be considered. And I think their dumpster placement is problematic and can easily be changed. And, number of pumps, I'm confused about or have questions about. I definitely think, decreasing the number of pumps and then which would decrease the number of hoses should, in theory, right, decrease traffic and intensity of use. But for the special permit application, and how do people who are using the app or are getting notified about, oh, there's a 7-Eleven with a gas station, you don't know by a sign somewhere or an app telling you, like if Waze, not even 7-Eleven app, if Waze is telling me there's a gas station and I need gas, it doesn't tell me how many pumps it has or how many hoses. It just says a gas station is at this exit or how many miles away. And if they, right, there's the signage on 95 that will say food, accommodations, gas, which is appropriate. That's not signage by any commercial establishment. That's signage for travelers to know if they need any of those necessities where they can get off. They don't know the number of pumps or hoses, right? Like, I get it, more pumps, more hoses, right, has more people going there because there's more, but I don't necessarily know if that impacts traffic to the site, right? Because if you're being directed there because you need gas, you don't know how many pumps or hoses there are. But I do think for site plan, some of the issues in terms of the inadequacy of parking given the tightness of site could be addressed by limiting the number of pumps and hoses. Traffic, Steve, Commissioner Alvani, the issue with curb cuts and egress, there's that sort of one, and no additional sort of exploration or consideration of additional ways to feed people in and out of the site was ever, I think, explored. And my concern, and I do not believe it has been addressed, I understand from both traffic, I think both peer reviewer and the applicant's traffic expert talked about that allowing left-hand turn would be preferable in terms of traffic and the condition around the oddity of that island that exists on the state road that is, the post road that we have no control over really, and directing traffic in a different direction to re-enter 95 if that's how they came to the site. That crosswalk and a left-hand turn is concerning to me. And I don't know if that's a site plan consideration or where's the proper, in what piece of this application we consider that. There is a crosswalk that was put on that road. I'm not sure at whose request or who painted that crosswalk there. I do not believe it was the town of Darien. I'm not sure how it got there. There's not a light there. There is not a stop sign. We know it abuts a residential area with a high number of children. So the crosswalk is there leading to the, and so the left-hand turn there without a light or anything, I worry about both, right, the traffic congestion that could happen on the post road and the exit off of 95, but also if there's pedestrian traffic on that crosswalk and the left-hand turn. So there's a conflict there that I'm not sure what can be done to resolve that from a site plan perspective.
Okay. Agreed. Larry, you're making waves.
Yeah, I'll just try to go quickly because a lot of the thoughts are the same, and I think I'm trying deliberately not to talk about traffic right now, but the curb cut, I guess the way I think of it is, you've only got, that's going to add to the congestion because you've only got one way in and out. And to Kara's point, if there are fewer pumps, I think that just makes more of a backup because you're going to service, people are going to get, it's going to take longer. And so now all of a sudden, are you potentially making the line on 95 longer? I mean, I did a drive this weekend. I went down to Washington, D.C., and I had my ways up. And frankly, I was alerted to every 7-Eleven along the way, right there on my ways. And, apparently there's no data as to how useful that is. So I'd love to be the guy that made that decision. Spend the money with no accountability. That's awesome. I don't know if cutting down the number of hoses really helps with that congestion issue, because this site makes everything go in and out of that one spot, and that's the way that site is designed. And maybe this is just not a site for a gas station, just with the way everything is lined up around it, with the way Route 1 bifurcates into a northbound lane and a southbound lane right there, and coming together. And obviously and we'll talk about traffic again later, but that's going to have an impact on the crosswalks and Birch Road and everything else there too. So and the other element about the site plan, I just need to mention, because we talked about when they were presenting the fishbowl, they had the security expert came in. I don't remember his name, and we was asked, does Tom, good old Tom, he was asked by Kara, I believe, the fact that the configuration is sideways, like the whole idea of the fishbowl is that people walking past, or as I understood it, can see in. And so if there's, a robbery happening on them, everyone's going to see it. When asked if the different allocation, the different configuration would impact that, his response was, "Oh, I haven't looked at this one yet." So I'm not even sure they're sure that, and they got to it, and they followed up and they got us the right information eventually. But I'm there's just a lot of little things that are adding up on this one that are just making it kind of tough. So those are just keeping, but for the record, lighting is fine in my mind. I thought the screening was nice. I had no issues with the signs and things like that. But this is a lot of commerce on a small site.
Thank you.
That'll be mine. Yep.
Jen, your light's on?
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to reiterate what everyone else is saying?
Sure.
Okay, I can. I think fishbowl design, the way that it's oriented on the site, I also had issues with. I think one curb cut in, one curb cut out. What Kara said, there are signs there. I get that they're not regulation signs, yet they're pretty smart and make sense safety wise. And then anyone who's been in and out of Dutchess knows that left turn is harrowing. I also thought that the vehicle generation was quite curious. There seemed to be discrepancies on safety, especially coming off of 95 and taking that left there, and the amount of time and car generation that would be added from 95. I think that there wasn't a lot of data that was properly communicated regarding the 7-Eleven app, which is very, it's really good. And, they talked about, sites will be used based on cost of goods, sold at particular sites. And I don't think their sales are better than any sales that I've ever seen at Dutch's, which is currently there. So I didn't see how that was factored in. And I think we can't, just because we don't have the data yet, doesn't mean that we shouldn't be really thinking about what this would look like here using technology, because we all know technology makes everything a lot easier, right? You can order food on the 7-Eleven app and get off and get it. And I just think, I don't know, I think that they have access to the data. And then there was also obviously a reticence about giving us what a 7-Eleven makes, right? I thought that was interesting. And then also how many trucks will be coming to the site, where they'll be stopping. And then I was, where the dumpster is, like George said, I had issues with it because you have some pedestrian traffic flow issues if there's a truck there, if there's cars parked. There was there seemed to be sight line issues. There was just a myriad of issues that when were brought up weren't really addressed directly, and caused a lot of concern, especially if you have a little one and you're walking, particularly in that the far, those far parking spots. So I think there was enough safety considerations that were not, I just didn't feel like my questions were ever properly answered. And that really caused a lot of pause. And I did think that started with a lot of the site questioning about this unique, everyone was focused on this unique design, but it didn't seem like anyone had really taken into consideration the unique design, or that it was just, I don't know, there was just a lot that just didn't add up with simple questioning, and with ample opportunity to come back with some answers for us. I think Jim asked everyone asked very clear questions about the site, and we just did not get clear answers back. I didn't have any problem with the lighting. And I think that was it. Yeah.
Okay. The only thing I want to make sure that we talk about too is, and I want to pass it on to Jim Rand in a second, is remember the site plan does not allow for electric charging stations. I think that's something we have to make sure we talk about. It's
All right.
more and more and more, these car companies are going away from gas and adding electric. Sorry, Jeff.
No, I agree with you that there's a lots of technology future, just things that were not really considered, that I find it curious.
Great. So Steve, explain that. So what do you mean by that? Just so I'm clear. It doesn't, you're not asking for it, or there's no, it's not allowing for it, or what do you mean by that?
The site plan doesn't allow for it. The car companies are moving away from gas. I mean, that's a documented fact. Volvo, BMW, they all came out in the news with that information. But the way the site plan is designed, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there's no spot, there's no extra space to put in a charging station. And I find that curious. I mean, I would have, if somebody comes out and says we're switching all of our cars to electric by 2035 or even 5 years from now, and you don't plan for that on a 30-year investment, that seems curious to me. That's all my point.
Jim Rand.
Jim Rand, you up? Jim Rand,
My principal concern with regard to the site plan is the traffic. The exit by westbound vehicles wishing to continue on the post road westbound is a zoo already. And I've lived here all my life. I know exactly what it is. There's a backup on the off ramp until let me figure out my directions. The eastbound traffic allows you to cross the first half of Route 1. Traffic wishing to continue west to get to 7-Eleven or wherever has to wait until the westbound traffic on Route 1 gives them a space, or you screw up your courage and you stick your nose out there hoping that the guy who's going westbound is not in fact trying to get onto the throughway ramp, the on-ramp for the throughway, and takes off your fender. I mean, you've got Splash Car Wash. When they get backed up, they stick the nose of the cars that they're drawing 4 feet out onto Route 1. I mean, the idea that this location, giving the approach pattern and the volume of traffic, that this is a good location for, I would use the term attractive nuisance, but that's probably not fair. But for a high traffic activity like a 7-Eleven, is crazy.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's there's a lot going on here. Did I miss anybody?
No, I think we got everyone. So what we'll do is continue this at probably
Okay.
probably won't be next week, but it might be next week. If not, it'll be the 20th.
You do whatever you need to do to make sure we're on time with the 65 days. So I care
You
about.
got it.
That's
Okay.
that's all I really care about. The only thing I just want to add is just relative to the curb cuts.
Yeah.
I asked the architect who said he did 5,000 convenience stores around the country over his career. He said he can only have a handful, only had one curb cut. And to George's point, everybody else's point, just so you guys remember, we made Equity 1, which owns the Trader Joe's shopping center, to make left turn only. Right turn only out, right? Eliminate the left turn because that's what the police department wanted. Everyone else wanted. They had a release valve out the back where it says if you're going back eastbound to town, you have to go out the back, and that's why they did it. They didn't get that. They don't have this release valve in here. That's why they can't do it. And to George's point, yes, it's that sign right there that says turn right only out is 100% a Dutchess sign. It's not regulated, but Dutchess wants people just to go right and not left. Okay, we're good. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. All right, next item up, we have business site plan application number 194H, special permit Felix F. Calari, Inc., DBA BMW of Darien, 136-140 Ledge Road. I'm not going to read the whole thing. That's okay, right?
Right.
Okay. Again, this is the renovation of the BMW that's existed in town for I don't know how many years. As part of their business plan, these car companies make domestic and foreign car companies upgrade their facilities all the time. These guys want to upgrade their facility to have a drive-in bay and move the bay. So we're going to knock down half the building, build a new building. We approved their rooftop parking 2 years ago.
It was a zoning regulation amendment about a year and a half ago, if I recall.
Something like that. It was I think we started in September, whatever year that was, when we finished. Yeah.
Early 2020.
2020.
And will allow for parking. And in this case, they're adding on to the front building, the middle of the property, and then building on the roof in the back.
Great. My personal belief is that the applicant went above and beyond the call of duty to make this application work. I think that the rooftop parking is, and they're going to be okay. We approved this at Walgreens, which is going to open probably next Thursday. There's a couple other properties have this same situation. I think that the neighboring people are gonna get some screening, that they're providing the screening or they're providing the money for the screening. I've gone by the site at night and looked at the lights. The lighting is, there's some lighting that's at Whole Foods, but that's not our application. The lighting at Whole Foods may affect the neighboring properties, but that's not us. I also listen to the sound late at night. During the day, when you go there late at night, the only sound you hear is I-95. And it's it's like a humming sound, like something you sleep to when you have one of those little sleep machines. So I think the applicant put in a lot of time into this. It took a year to do it. I think a lot of the concerns of the neighboring Middlesex Commons were addressed and taken care of, and I think they, in total, I think it's a very good application, and I'm in support of it. With that said, next person up, Larry Warble, you want to go next on this one?
Yeah, I basically agree with you on those fronts. I think they have done quite a bit. I mean, 95 is a very loud road. I personally live about a half mile from it, and I can, and I can hear it. So being that close, that's going to drown out a lot of noise all the time anyway. But I do think that the applicant has done quite a bit to make it. I think of it at the end of the day, it's going to be a nicer view than what they have today. And I think that's, everything's just moving in the right direction, and nothing's perfect, but the perfect can't be the enemy of the good. So I generally feel that, that this is a strong application, and I support it too.
Okay. George or Jennifer, want to go next?
Kara
George,
seems
your
to. Kara had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kara. I'm going like this.
I just have questions, and maybe they're not, I know it's deliberations until the applicant's not here. I appreciate and I think their willingness and working with the residential neighbors behind them is really the right way to approach things. And I really do think, and I hope that between their, Wilder, believe Wilder was their attorney, and Jackie Kaufman, I think a lot of headway was made in kind of, getting to a place where both parties feel happy and comfortable with the proposed changes. And I think that's really better than, things that we could impose on people, or, I think that's the right approach. And so I really do appreciate that. And I agree with you, right? The location, it's 95, it's that residential neighbors are gonna have issues and noise and lighting, and that's really unfortunate. And I appreciate the applicant's time with the ARB and sort of, right, it's really understand all that, but like changing the way some of the rooftop, gabling it or whatever, was going on with making the appearance look more residential, and the screening and having the screening be like similar to what they already had is really important. And I do understand, and I appreciate that some of the footprint was decreased in some areas, and buildings were, certain areas were made smaller and then others were made larger. And I guess what my ultimate question is what is the overall percentage of increase of the developed land, right? So I know there's two lots. There was a service and sales building, and then a smaller car wash service. And then one is going to be raised. The service bays that were attached to the sales building are going to be raised. The footprint of the smaller building in the back that is being raised will be larger. The part of the sales building that is being raised will make that small. I know Jen's daughter's very cute. I'm sorry, I got distracted. I guess overall, I know, it's my dog, Jen's daughter,
Sorry,
but her dog is Peter.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
Got the answer to that
So I guess my overall question is about not separating the lots and what is the overall footprint increase or decrease overall of the project? And then what is the overall percentage increase of developed land, not bifurcated by lot? I know we already approved the 30%, right? We did the reg amendment, so I'm sure they're within it. I just want to know overall what those numbers are. And then I think I can be comfortable because I think a lot of headway has been made with the neighbors. And I think they've been, in terms of the aesthetics, it looks like it's going to be beautiful. The screening, I believe noise, their expert has said, will decrease. And lighting will decrease over. So I think overall, a lot of improvements will happen and intensity will probably remain the same. I think overall, based on all the changes of service areas and mini moving and all this different stuff. So my question would just be about overall percentage increase of the developed land and the overall change in the combined footprint of the various buildings, not breaking it out into building 1 and 2 and talking about just those changes.
Yeah, I think, Kara, I do remember the readiness and need plan and some of the application submittals. What Fred and I will do is track that down within the application and get that out to you. I remember it was part of Wilder's early submittal, and I think it was somewhere on Craig Flaherty's.
No, I know it's all, yeah, okay.
So we'll track that down. We'll get that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
The bottom line, it does go down, is my recollection.
Well, we'll get that.
That's fine. Yep. Larry or George or Jen? Or Larry or when? George and Jen?
I'm happy to comment real quickly to say me too, to much of what the chairman indicated. I think they're going to have a better view, frankly, at the end of the day than they currently. They're either going to be looking at some lovely evergreen type trees, or they'll be looking at a residential type siting. Whereas right now, I noted that from the parking area without any leaves on the trees, you can see the roof of the existing service building. So I think even a parking lot might be better than that, but I don't think they're going to see the cars in the parking lot. I think they're going to see something more attractive. So I am not, if they see anything at all. I almost worry about clearly Middlesex Commons and their council were boy, they played hardball here, and they got I think a really good result. To the extent that was their mission, good for them. I frankly have a little concern that we're setting a standard that other applicants in the future may be a little intimidated by. When you look at the number of trees and offering trees that others can plant and all of that, I think it's a remarkable endeavor that the applicant is undertaking. And if that's the standard for future applicants, that's going to, I think, be problematic. But anyway, they're doing what they want to do and have to do to get it done. The only little nit I might pick is I don't know why they need to run a car wash at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. I think if they've serviced cars, they probably release them. And anyway, I would start that a little later in the day, but I can address that some other time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jen?
Yeah,
You
I
can
think
have your daughter talk if you want to. She can talk for you.
she would love to. I think the applicant really listened, and I appreciate that. I think there was a lot of effort made, and both noise, light will be improved on the site. I understand, and like what Larry said, it's like, what was that phrase? Don't let, it's a good one, where it's like,
the perfect is the enemy of the good.
yeah, perfect is the enemy of the good. I commend the applicant for really working so hard and trying to make a solution to trying to make a solution. So I think I was happy with how everything turned out.
Well, thank you, John. Jim Rand, any comments?
I think from, as far as as I understand, the objective data that we received from the applicant, the sight lines will improve, the noise will go down. I think it overall, I think it's an improvement over where we are today, and I would support the application.
Okay,
Thank you all.
that's everybody.
Great,
Fantastic.
thank you.
So you'll draft something up and we'll go over it next time.
Yep.
All right, thank you, everybody. Move on to the next item. I call it number 6. We got the Highland Farms. They're asking more times for put in bushes.
Yep, we're gonna try to get it done, I was gonna say spring, April, May, but as you can see from Kate Bush's email, there's a chance it slips into the fall to try to get this grant.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
Yeah.
just wanted to get the feedback from the commission, and
What plants do they have to put in? It looks
there's
great.
some required plantings that have to go in over and above what's there now.
Okay. I think it's fine to grant this application. Anybody have any comments on this?
Now, I have a thought. Recently, there have been these big soccer goals installed on the property. I went back and looked at the discussions that we had, and frankly, I can't. I don't know whether that's in accordance with what we agreed or gone beyond it or whatever. But I think as long as they've come back and asked for something, we ought to take 5 minutes and make sure that the use that they're making of it, even though we're only in April, agrees with what we approved they could do. This may be our last bite at the cherry, so.
Jeremy.
Yeah, Jim, it's a very good question. That did come up, I think it was last week, where there was a member of the public from Saddle Ridge Road who voiced concerns about 2 aspects. One is the porta potty, and one was the soccer nets. So I did spend some time I believe it was last week, last Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe even Thursday, looking through the old P&Z approval, the resolution, reading it closely multiple times, just for those 2 questions, which is soccer goals allowed. These are soccer goals that are movable. They have wheels, but they're not permanent structures. And the other issue is relative to the porta potty that's been there. So after reading through it, I can certainly send the commission my email, but it was very clear to me there are some restrictions that are over and above what was in the P&Z approval relative to when the town purchased it. So for example, there was a restriction on what can be done not to scare horses, for example. So kite flying was in there, you may recall, and fireworks was in there. You couldn't, because that could potentially scare the horses. But my reading of the resolution last week was very clear. The porta potty is
Required.
Well, it's Park and Rec is having scheduled, these aren't special events, these are programmed, routine programmed events where it was left to the jurisdiction of the Park and Recreation Department to figure out what's necessary, and that the temporary soccer goals, they're not permanent structures, can be left on the fields. So I'm glad you mentioned it, Jim, because I did look into that last week. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks, Jeremy. I did stop, or rather Gail did stop and ask the guy that was mowing the lawn, works for Park and Recs, the tractor. He couldn't move them. So they may be temporary from the point of view that they got wheels, but it takes 3 men and a tractor to move one of those things.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, from my recollection is they were not allowed to put up goalposts for football because that's permanent. That gets concrete into the ground. but if you remember, the application was designed to have 3 youth soccer fields.
That's what that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, it was designed for 3 youth soccer fields. You could also have lacrosse there. I've actually tried having lacrosse there, but they won't approve that because cross balls are gonna go across the road. Anyway, yeah, Karen.
Well, so yeah, I remember, and I don't believe I was not on the commission when all this was approved, but I just remember from being a resident of town, and going through the approvals, and, you know, staying on top of what was going on. I believe it was approved for, you know, use including K-2 soccer. And hearing what you're saying about the horses being disrupted, perhaps K-2 was supposed to be about the size of the K-2 nets, soccer nets, which are small, little guys. It's not those, the nets that are there currently. I don't know a lot. I will admit, I do not know anything about soccer. But I believe those, yes, Steve, I know about lacrosse. I believe those nets are not K-2, but I don't know that for a fact. So I think it was K-2 was approved to be used on those fields.
I think it was designed for 3 little soccer fields, which you can make into 1 bigger soccer field.
Right. Yeah, and so now it's 1 big soccer field with a massive net, nets. Yes, but lacrosse nets, yes, are much smaller and more easily movable. But yes, those balls are harder and go at a faster velocity, which could potentially be disruptive to the horses.
Right,
so
let's
I
keep it
understand the
to-
difference.
Do we want to give
think.
them the extension?
Well,
I'm sorry.
Do we want to give them the extension?
The extension for the bushes? Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, I think it seems reasonable.
I mean, Gail called the Parks and Rec, and you know, what's the story with the soccer nets? And she was told, now maybe she misunderstood, although she listens very carefully. Oh, it's okay. The people that put the nets there have a lease on them. We've got a contract with them for their use. So I mean, this at first blush appears to be, you know, commercial money-making business.
Wait, what? Can you repeat that? Sorry, Jim.
It's-
I can get.
Jeremy's going like crazy.
You guys voted on it.
Yeah,
I didn't
exactly.
vote on it.
I know. We'll get the resolution back out. But the question in hand is, we're going to give them the extension to put in the things. You know, if they're not complying with the resolution, that's a different kettle of fish. But I get Jim's point.
Just because I like Jim just said it, and sorry, I like super appreciate it, and I see that there's like it's a little bit of clearly a hot button. But Jim, could you just repeat it again, as because I need to understand.
Jen, this is third hand, okay? But Gail got the distinct impression from what the person at Park and Rec said to her was that there's some organization in town that has paid the town for the right to hold clinics, put up the nets, whatever.
Yep.
I mean, I don't object to the, you know, the soccer coach having a little business on the side and so forth, but if it raises issues with what we've approved and what the town has agreed, I think this ought to be understood.
Yeah, for example, the town hall fields in front of the building I'm sitting in, they rent those fields out to like a little youth soccer people that I forget their name. They were the orange shirts.
These are
Blue
Park and-
takers,
Yeah,
Park and Rec programs,
Yeah.
but,
but they're little nets.
correct.
well, no, it has nothing to do with, the issue is when you can imagine the town of Darien would not have, I'm certainly a full-time staff, Fred's full-time staff. You would not want the town of Darien to hire 15 yoga instructors, 22 soccer coaches, 52 lacrosse coaches. They contract that out, right? So what happens is when Park and Rec runs a program, whether it's guitar lessons, piano lessons, they contract out to the experts who run the program.
Right.
Parents pay Park and Rec for their children to play guitar, play lacrosse, or play soccer. And
That's who leases it.
That's
Yeah.
right. So-
Okay,
And I don't know in this case, Jim, I don't know what the answer is. My concern is the zoning aspect. Is what they're doing complying with zoning? And the
Yeah.
answer unequivocally was yes.
okay, thank you.
K through 2? I thought it was K through 2.
Not
Yeah.
coverage.
What's up?
Oh, it was just soccer. Wait, why? And I was not on this. Why would we
That's right.
approve it for one sport?
We still got stuff on the agenda, guys.
Okay, I
All
didn't bring it.
That's okay. Can I get a motion to approve the extension to October 30th? That's Kara said yes, Jim said seconded, all those in favor, great.
Thank you.
All right, we got it, next. Sorry, request to establish outdoor activities in 2021 due to COVID at Vibe Fitness at 285 Tokenique Road. We've seen a lot of these. We've allowed people like, Joyride and who's the other one? The Bar Method and Dynamic Fitness. These guys are practicing outside. So this is another one that wants to practice outside. Jeremy, go ahead, take it away.
In this case, you all got in your packet a copy of a letter from Aidan Gaffney, who's here with you tonight, dated April 13th, regarding his request to continue to have outdoor operations for his business on Tokenique Road. In response to his request, Fred and I met with Mr. Gaffney earlier today to discuss the application. We had noted that we were getting some concerns about parking in the road, general, I'll call it sloppiness of the tents, the storage unit, which is now on site. So Mr. Gaffney was nice enough to email Fred and myself right before tonight's meeting. And in response to those comments, he mentioned three things to me and Fred. One is the storage unit will be able to be removed by the end of May. Two is when we were out there, the covers to the tents were off. Since then, Mr. Gaffney has put the covers back on the tents. So if you were to drive out tomorrow morning, you'll see the covers back out on the tents like this. And the third thing Mr. Gaffney mentioned is he will be able to take the turf that's now in the parking lot, throughout the parking lot, and push that closer to the tent to create more room on site for parking. I think that was concerns was more and more vehicles were starting to park on Tokenique Road. So by moving the turf that they've put out further into the site, kind of where the storage unit is now and next to the tents, it will create more room for on-site parking. So I wanted to mention those three changes to the commission. The request would be for a one-year approval during COVID, similar to what you've done last year for other operations till October 31st. And any request for beyond this year will need to come back to the commission for review and action.
So is it to December 31st, 2021 or October 1st?
October 31st.
October 31st. Okay, yeah, we're October 31st. Questions, comments, changes? It's a COVID issue? Go ahead, Kara.
I just think, we're approving this for other gyms and similar facilities. I think we should treat this gym facility in a comparable manner. We're not requiring tents and sort of things for other gyms. And I think Vibe, and my kids don't go there, but I have heard anecdotally that they seem to provide a lot of service to the community, more so to the youth of the community. And I think a particular concern, especially for gyms, is high school and middle school students are really suffering in terms of the lack of physical activity, right? Gym is not happening at schools. They're walking around or doing nothing. There has been a shutdown of a lot of physical activity for kids and high school students, which has led to increased rates of depression, obesity, and other areas. So I think this is an establishment that I think services and provides, works with our schools and the kids in our town to provide, athletic strength and conditioning. And like I said, my kids don't do it, but I've heard that, they work with all the teams. And so if they're asking for something and they are listening to what neighbors are saying, and they're willing to make accommodations to address neighbor concerns, then we should treat them like we treated other gyms in the town. And I would say we should approve it.
Thanks. Cool.
Mr.
Larry,
Chairman,
anybody else?
Mr. Chairman,
Hold on one second, sir. Hold on one second, sir. Larry, you want to go next?
I generally support it. I think it's all the same reasons.
It's temporary. Anybody else? And then I'm going to ask, I can ask this guy. This guy can speak, right?
It's up to you.
Okay. Oh,
Jennifer.
I'm going to ask this one gentleman who wants to speak. Does any other commissioner want to say anything? Jim Rand, mic's on. You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. My grandson uses it and likes it a lot.
Yeah.
Aw.
Cool.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, with due respect, if I may act out of order, because I realize this is deliberations only, to make a comment.
No, you're welcome.
Well,
Just
if
state
it's
your
only
name.
on- if it's only
It's-
on this
My name is David Smith, 26 Birch Road, Darien, Connecticut.
Sir, you're talking about, hold on. You're talking about what application you want to talk about?
With respect to the Vive Fitness,
Okay. But you can speak about Vive Fitness. Yeah, go ahead.
obviously,
Sir, I apologize. So can you just give me your name and address, please?
I'm sorry, my name is David Smith, Darien,
Okay.
Connecticut, 26 Birch Road.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I'm sorry, I'll speak quickly. My kids use this place. I think it's great. The problem you have is that the outdoor activities used by the local fitness establishments is encroaching pretty dramatically on neighboring areas. And the reason I decided to come on tonight is that I know Vive Fitness and Dynamic Athletics, which is at the end of my street, are using.
Yeah, Dynamic Fitness isn't part of this.
Excuse me, are using the Vive Fitness and
Right.
other similar activities.
Yep.
In the town of Darien, for which you're responsible, are using the neighborhoods as their backdoor playground and are sending mass multitudes of people into the neighborhoods to use the roads, yards, and streets as their playgrounds. And if you'll allow me to speak, I will tone my rhetoric down. But what has happened as a practical matter is that Vive Fitness, Dynamic Athletics, which is not a subject of this meeting, are using the neighborhoods as an opportunity to keep their businesses alive during COVID times as their backyard playgrounds. And to speak to Mrs. Gately's continued observation that there are unintended despite her own personal interest in the issues, are creating unintended consequences. I really object to giving Vive Fitness the opportunity to use this opportunity to create the ability to use the neighborhood as their outdoor playground. And I think, the permissiveness with which you've allowed these establishments to do this is a significant problem for the neighboring communities. And using the neighborhood as a playground for these kinds of things is inappropriate, and you need to think about it before you take action.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry,
Okay.
my rhetoric is harsh just to get attention. I like the place. I think it's responsible. But, during these times, these commercial establishments need to stay in business. And what ends up happening is that they end up encroaching in the neighborhood in order to keep it going. And I don't like having 15 people standing in my front yard, on their way back to the gym, because it's not their playground, it's my neighborhood. All right?
Thank you, sir. Okay. Anybody else have any comments on this request to work outside? Jen, your lights on? You're good?
Great.
Okay, great.
We'll draft a letter back to Mr.
Fantastic.
Mr.
Okay,
Gagne. Thank you.
he's done. Great. Next item, approval of minutes. If you guys don't mind, I want to punt approval of minutes to next time. I just want to look at it one more time because there's our first night of deliberations on at 7-Eleven in there, and I want to make sure that's right before we move on to those.
Great.
Okay. It's also 5 minutes to 10. I just have a couple items under chairman's report just to blow through really quick. One is the Walgreens is ready to open. It's probably not going to open this Thursday. It's going to open next Thursday. Their new sign is up on the new building. I think it looks great. It's backlit. It's dark red and matches the dark red brush. The sign is taken off the other building. And there's a notice of demolition on the old building. I think that as soon as they move over, that notice is going to go live and that building's going to be gone. The next item is the answer to my homework question. Does anybody have any comments relative to the hybrid meeting that you want to email or say or anything? Anybody thought about their homework assignment?
I forgot. What was it again?
Thought so. We'll have to put this on the next chairman's report. We'll pass on that one then. Somebody do their homework. The next item is
Just Steve, just so you know, I'm ready to go live. I'm ready to go live whenever we can.
you can come
Yeah,
back and see us anytime you
In
want.
person. Yeah,
You can
okay.
come in person whenever you want. I don't know.
Or
I
you
mean, this trip's going to end. The governor's going to lift the orders eventually.
Yeah, 206, they're working on getting it set up, but we can meet in there if the commission wants to meet in there. We can social distance. Yep, no problem.
We can go to 206, all right? We'll talk about that next meeting. See when we want to go back live. As soon as 206 is done.
I've been totally vaccinated, so I'm good, and I'll wear a mask.
Yeah, I'll get my second
Almost
vaccination on Thursday. All right, I'm really trying to get us out of here by 10 o'clock. What else? With regards to our public hearing that we had a week ago, 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, right? We drafted a cover letter to our state and Senate delegation and House delegation. We got, there was 12 people that spoke at the hearing. And it was taped. It was about a 90-minute tape. And we got in, I think, 16 letters total, of which 6 of them were duplicates. We did get some letters after the fact. The majority of them were 100% in favor of what we said. So that gives me some satisfaction that we're speaking the way the town wants us to speak. And I think that's great. There was one letter that supports 1024, and there was another letter that I don't know if it supported it or it didn't support it. I really couldn't tell. But all those things, did you send this to these guys? We didn't get our files.
Well, the commission had seen all of them, but
Okay.
Fred and I can send out tomorrow the full package and the final letter.
Okay, you can see if you guys want that by email. Inside the letter, inside the letter that was emailed to the Senate delegations is the hot link for the Vimeo, and it says right in there, hey, dear Senator Duff, dear Senator Miller, dear Representative Wood, dear Representative Blumenthal, if you want to watch us on tape, click on this thing and you'll see our 90-minute tape.
And that was all emailed to commission members this afternoon. So you all should have that now.
Oh, cool. I don't check my email, so sorry, Fred. All right. Well, I check my email that goes to work. What else? What is GG author call with? Oh, the other thing that I personally think that Fred and Jeremy are very humble. Jeremy is again being chased down by New Canaan and Greenwich for his comments on what the town should do relative to not 830G, really affordable housing,
Trust fund.
housing
Yeah,
trust
Greenwich
fund.
is working on a trust fund. You may have seen in the paper, Norwalk's tweaking their inclusionary zoning. New Canaan's tweaking theirs.
Greenwich is writing theirs.
Greenwich writing theirs. Westport just did accessory dwelling units. So it's all of us talking all the time.
Yeah. So Jeremy's not the consultant to all the other towns on how to write their zoning code, which I think is kind of cool. The last thing, well, two other things. One is, if you guys remember, the Tina Dragon store was an application where Compass was going to go in there. There's a brand new ladies' clothing store in there. So when Compass pulled that application because they couldn't get somebody else to go in there, miraculously there's a new tenant that is in there. That's a ladies' clothing store.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding. That's serious. And then the last thing I just want to let you guys know is every quarter I get a thing called the quarterly report for what we did for the quarter from January 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2021. The one thing I want to just read to you is it's a sentence. Zoning permit volume has increased to levels not seen in 30 years, very much above the normal for typical January to March. These guys and our staff have worked their tails off. They approved, what is it? How many approved? The majority of the zoning permits are for pools.
Not a majority. There were, how many for pools? 20 for pools, 180 total.
180 total. In all of 2018, they only had 79. You know, so these guys are working double time to do this stuff. They looked at like 25 applications for P&Z, 11 applications for environmental protection, and 4 applications for zoning purposes. Just 180 total permits were issued by the Planning Zoning Office in the first quarter of this year. That's numbers that they have not seen in 37 years.
Wow, that's
These guys
amazing.
do this. I don't know how they do it, but you know.
Well, think about the data of the houses sold, right? And on top of that, everyone
crazy.
had to stay put.
The only one thing I want to add is this is the copy of the letter that we sent to those people. Just so you guys know, we had letters of quote unquote support for what we did from 2 former P&Z chairmen, 1 former selectman, the current selectman, and there was another letter from a past selectman. So a lot of people that study this stuff that are really concerned really commented on what we did. That's it for me. That's my chairman's report, and I got 10:01. Any other business regards 2/3 majority vote to bring it in? No one's voting, so no one's taking it. Our next upcoming meetings are next week, the 27th. We're going to go over what?
Full public hearing night. Zoning regulation amendments will be the main topic of concern. We're going to have a proposal for one of John Vaccaro's theater building. He's got 1 tenant that's a special permit use. That's going to be a separate public hearing. The proposal to allow 2 houses on 1 lot temporarily, Mr. Brown on Peach Hill Road has come back. And the other hearing would be, you heard a hearing for 89 5 Mile River Road. Bob Maslin came with an application a few months ago. He withdrew that. This is the resubmittal of that application.
Okay.
So it's going to be a full public hearing now.
So that Peach Hill Road one was the site that Jen really wanted the guy to do it, but with change code. Oh, cool. So Jen, your guy gets to come back. The meeting after that's May 4th. Anything?
Remind me, wait, what's Peach Hill Road again?
There was a guy that came in on Peach Hill Road, and he wanted to be able to live in the barn while he was building a new house, and that got denied. But now that would be an accessory dwelling unit, and Jen at the time, if I recall, and I'll put words in your mouth, said we should really look at this and try to fix it. That's what would be called an ADU.
Well, the
Wait, but an
ZBA
ADU, but a permanent ADU.
No, we're not. This is
temporary.
Let's do it temporary.
It's
Correct.
not an ADU, it's temporary.
Correct.
No, it's a
Maybe-
temporary, I want to live in my barn.
Right.
And then are we gonna like temporarily allow people to live in tents? And temporarily live
Let's
in
talk
like.
about that. Let's look at the application when we
No,
see
I'm
it.
serious. I'm all for ADUs, but like temporarily living in like your car or temporarily living in like a tent, which we've had, like there are people living in their tents. On a- It's not
Let's-
okay. It's not clean. It's not that. It's not safe.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Like
I don't know, I got a pretty nice bed.
residences should be safe for people.
May 4th.
We adjourn.
I know, I'm trying to.
May 4th is going to be public hearings put forth by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Modifications to inclusionary zoning, modifications to parking standards for multifamily housing, and elimination of certain minimum apartment sizes in certain multifamily zones.
Fantastic, thank you. With that said, I would look for a motion to adjourn from George Riley. His hands up. Is there a second? Jen Leahy, all those in favor? Thank you, folks. Another good night, 10:04. We're trying. Thank you,
See
everybody.
y'all.
Good night.